You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness. Hey everyone, welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Ashley and I'm your host. And I am lucky enough to have with me Lieutenant General Kevin Vereen, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the G9. He is the Principal Advisor to Army senior leaders on installation policy, plans, and resources, which includes quality of life programs for all components. Also with me is Ms. Dee Geise, the Director of Prevention, Resilience, and Readiness for G9. You have a lot here. I'm going to go slow so I get it all. Her portfolio includes programs under the Army Community Services and Morale, Welfare, and Recreation umbrellas, Child and Youth Services, and also serves as the Director of the Quality of Life Task Force. Recently, she added the prevention of harmful behaviors like suicide prevention, SHARP, and substance abuse prevention to her portfolio. That's a lot. But thank you both for taking your time while you're here to talk with me. I appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
Glad to be here.
So FORSCOM is the largest command in the Army, more than 750,000 soldiers. So what you guys are doing affects all of our soldiers and their families. So I'm really excited to talk about this with you. Sir, you're in charge of the Army's organization tasked with improving soldiers' quality of life. But can you break down what that really means? What is G9?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll just, first of all, I say that even though I have the single point of responsibility for all of this, it's really it's a collective effort as we look at some of the challenges I think our Army is experiencing. And I say that because there's a lot of leaders that are involved in ensuring that, one, that we do have quality infrastructure and quality of life for our families and our soldiers. And so I do want to say that it's not upon me. As you can see, Dee has a really robust portfolio as well. So, but there are a lot of folks who are helping this. And so if I could frame it for you, I think the most important aspect of what we do is really listening from the field. We're absolutely invested in ensuring that leaders, we pay attention to what leaders, what they need. And here in my office, as the headquarters G9, I'm responsible for taking those needs and we prioritize our requirements, and then of course with prioritization comes how do we resource it with funding. And so I spend a lot of time ensuring that the requirements are nested with the resources, because if we don't have that moving, then of course we never have significant change on the ground at our post camps and stations. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do, but I work hand in hand with multiple amount of agencies that kind of help us as we ensure that we provide the best quality of life for our soldiers and families.
Something you just said prompted another question, so I'm going to go off script for a minute. So you have been visiting installations around the Army. What are you hearing from soldiers, and what's the point of those visits?
So I think it's very important that we get out and see our post camps and stations. I think I pride our organization on ensuring that we're not necessarily stovepiped in the center of the Pentagon, which is where we work. But true reality is when you get on the ground and kind of see certain things and hear the soldiers and families. And so I think what we do know is that there is absolutely a desire to want to have quality infrastructure, where our soldiers work, where they live and where they play, because we do have the morale, welfare, and recreation requirements as well. Those are all important. And it is not only a retention, tool, but it's also a recruiting tool. And so when you think about some of the larger portions of the desires of our population of soldiers and families, it really centers around having quality infrastructure. I can't say enough about spouse employment, and I know Dee is going to talk about that. But we know that soldiers enlist to join the Army, but they also acquire families along the way. And so in order for us to be able to keep them and have them, knowing that we're going to look after their needs, spouse employment is absolutely critical to that. Now, when I came in the Army, a lot of our spouses did not necessarily work. But times have changed, and we know that our spouses have careers, and so it's important that we do everything we can to ensure that we have employment that's available that meets the level of that and expectation that our spouses want. And in some cases that our jobs that we select, that we try to find for our spouses, are transferable as well, because we know that our soldiers and families PCS as well. So that's important.
I feel all of that, especially with the spouse employment. So Ms. Geise, several years ago, our Army leaders stood up the Quality of Life Task Force. What was the intent, and can you give us an update on what has happened with the Quality of Life Task Force?
Yes, of course. So when General McConville came in as the Chief of Staff of the Army, his transition team went out to look at what are the struggles that are happening in the Army, and there was no surprise what those struggles were: housing, healthcare, childcare, spouse employment, and PCS moves. So there was a task force stood up. It is still alive and well today, and we've actually added lines of effort based on specified guidance from the Secretary of the Army. And we have a very large village. We have all of those lines of effort. We have participants from the headquarters department of the Army, including our Secretariat, down into the garrisons. We have very specific task lists that we follow to fix at the guidance of the Secretary and the Chief, and then of course our senior leaders like General Vereen in the Pentagon. I think it is too numerous to mention, but I will tell you, Quality of Life, Army.mil/quality of life, and you can see some of those significant changes that we've made. We got the easy stuff out of the way first, and now we're working on the hard things. And the hard things look like big Army policy, big money, OSD policy or legislation. But there is a lot of accomplishment in that space, and certainly more to come.
Okay. And so we've talked about it, spouse employment. And the Army is expanding the non-competitive hiring authority for spouses. And as a spouse, of course, this piques my interest. I say every 3 years, I feel like I'm just giving up a perfectly good job to move with my soldier. And I've tried to keep up, but there are changes always happening. So can you just talk about what has been done to help spouses?
Yes. So to pull the thread a little on General Vereen's comment about portability, one of the first things we put in place was a civilian employment assignment tool. It was started specifically for child and youth employees, that spouses could move, or any non-appropriated fund employee could move from base to base, and they would be guaranteed a job when they moved. That has been expanded now to all non-appropriated fund employees, and that looks like our morale, welfare, and recreation activities, our fitness centers, and the like. We've been very successful with the assignment tool. The second thing we did was plussed up authorizations in Installation Management Command for employment readiness personnel. And I think we were up 32 or 35. But in addition to that, they are offering those employment readiness personnel a certification in career counseling. So they are not just the folks that are going to point you in the right direction and give you a little help with your resume, but these are folks that really are going to sit down with our spouses and say, what are your career aspirations? Then let me help you shape your resume in a way, and then point you in the right direction. I always mention the My Career Advancement Accounts. This is a Army Office of Secretary of Defense initiative that offers scholarships. You can find out more about that on the Military OneSource page, up to $4,000 for certification or licenses or towards a degree. That's extremely important. Every time I talk about it, there are so many people that don't know, and it's there for their taking.
Yeah.
And then finally, I will mention Military Spouse Employment Partnership. And these are corporations that partner with all of the services, so that when a spouse gets a job, she can move, or he can move with that job during the PCS.
That sounds amazing. And I think, navigating the USA Jobs platform as a whole can be a challenge. And so the fact that there are people out there that can help you do that, and help you build your resume so that you can potentially get those positions is awesome. But there's also more happening with professional licenses and certifications, correct?
That is correct. So we work with our partners in the Office of Secretary of Defense. This defense state liaisons work with the states on that licensure reciprocity. And there are compacts in place, but there's a lot of work to be done. We did get the executive order from the president to implement licensure reciprocity for military spouses. There's still a lot of work to do for implementation.
Okay.
It creates a lot of work for each individual state. So we're not quite there yet, but we're still working on what that looks like.
Okay. And so another huge thing with families is housing, sir.
Right.
Both family housing and barracks even. And we've heard the stories of mold right here at Fort Liberty, soldiers being relocated. But there are a lot of efforts underway to make sure that our soldiers, both in the barracks and in family housing, have adequate quarters.
Right.
Can you talk about some of these initiatives?
Yeah, I can. So I'll first start with barracks. So we have a large inventory of barracks across the Army, and if I frame it, I'll just tell you most of our infrastructure is normally built to last about 50 years. It really is, and so we are well beyond those dates when you look at a lot of our infrastructure. And so what we have done in barracks, and I can't say enough about our Army senior leadership, our secretary and our chief, with making barracks a priority. And so we are going to invest a little over about $1.5 billion a year for the next 10 years.
Wow.
In barracks. And so we understand that it is we are in an age where we've kind of really have foregone a lot of our barracks and infrastructure. We've done some minor modifications and some modernization to our barracks, but we necessarily have not done major MILCON efforts. And so we're moving in that vein, in that venue, in that direction. And so we're excited about where that's going now. Of course, it's been well aware of some of the challenges we've had in our barracks with mold. We are truly seeing the implications of climate and varying climates across the United States, and that's been a challenge for us. But I can applaud our young soldiers. Believe it or not, we have young soldiers every single day thinking of new ways to try to get after this mold challenge that we have. But we also have mold remediation that we're actually going through, and we're inspecting all of our barracks to ensure that there's no signs of mold, and if there are, then we're going to remediate it, immediately. So we're working hand in hand with the MCOM command, and we feel that we are in a really good position when we look at barracks. But we are going to make major investments over the next 10 years in barracks. Now I'll transition to Army family housing. So we have a couple types of housing. We have Army-owned housing. We have a little over 12,000 Army homes that we actually have to resource and keep up. Most of that is overseas in Europe and other places. And so we have that inventory of housing, which causes unique challenges. I mean, a lot of them are historic.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that we have the resources to apply to them. And in some cases, when you have historic housing, there are certain things that you can't acquire on the local market, and you got to be very careful what replacement items you bring in.
Sure.
We got to make sure we kind of keeps this integrity. But we are working through funding our Army-owned housing because it is absolutely important for our families overseas. And then we have this inventory of privatized housing, where we have privatized organizations and companies that are investing in property. They're leasing land to build new properties across all of our military installations, and we have a little over 80,000 of those properties across our Army installations. And so we are investing a little over $3 billion. $3 billion in our housing, and that shows the priorities that we've placed on ensuring that our housing does get in a good state of condition. We keep it up, and we're able also to invest and build new infrastructure as well as we move along the way. I can't say enough about our ability to be able to leverage the Bill of Rights for those who are living in Army housing. and it allows our residents, those who sign for housing, to have all the things afforded to them as you would if you're buying a house on the open market or you've been in one of the communities. You have a Bill of Rights, and so our partners are well aware of it. And so when our families have issues, then the expectation is that they'll be immediately fixed and resolved using the partner as a go-between. But also we understand that in anything that we do in the Army, leadership absolutely is integral. And so we're investing time in ensuring that our leaders understand that because we have housing and it's privatized in some shape, form, or fashion, leaders, when they have true problems that impact families and soldiers, then they need to invest the time to help fix it and resolve it at the lowest level possible. And if not, then push it up to the higher level so we can help resolve them.
Yeah. So. Well, and you mentioned overseas housing. There's more than just the Army in that case. You have the local nationals there and their rules and the country's rules and everything to also consider when, you talk anything overseas, really. Right. So adding another aspect to it.
It does. It adds another aspect to it. And we want to do right by whatever, country we're living in and where our soldiers and families reside. And so we have to ensure that, those agreements that we make on the outside of our military installations, support, the rules and requirements that that country, holds firm to, and of course that we agree to as an Army. But I think we're excited about where we're going with our infrastructure. Again, we know that we've got a lot of work to do, and it's gonna take a little bit of time. But we are prioritizing and using modeling that helps us. When we look at our infrastructure, and I think as we continue to prioritize and really go back and look at how we're doing across our military installations, I think we'll see true change happen. But I also caution folks that it does take a while.
Right.
When you look at our budgeting cycles and how we palm for money and things of that nature. I mean, it literally is a 5-year plan, and so we're trying to move it faster. But we also know that in some cases we're just going to have to be patient.
Yeah, we just can't build houses overnight, right?
Absolutely. We can build it, but it may not be the quality that we expect. And so we're balancing quality with speed and efficiency as well. So.
All right. And so, Ms. Geise, again, as a spouse, and I know you were an Army spouse as well, and I have a full-time job, and I always hope that when I PCS, I'll have a full-time job again. Like I said, it's hard to give up that job every few years. But childcare is a huge factor when spouses are looking to go to work, moving to a new location, maybe not knowing anybody there. Often there are wait lists. We were on one for 3 months. Thankfully, we've always been very lucky with childcare and have loved our CDCs that we've been in. But is there anything being done to help with the childcare wait lists and getting childcare for spouses?
Absolutely. A couple of major things. So coming out of COVID right now, staffing is an issue.
Yeah.
So those wait lists are driven by the staffing we have in place and the ability to maintain the ratios that are directed to us, right? So that's quality care and safety for our children. So that's important. So what the services in the Army is doing now is implementing incentives for recruitment and retention. In some locations where we have larger problems, they're also offering commissary access to childcare employees. So these things are helping us retain. We have a recruitment problem, we have a bigger retention problem, and we really need to focus on that. So we're incentivizing retention right now. The other work that we're doing is expanding the off-post care. So a couple things have happened. It used to be 1,300, it's 1,500 now. In our next cycle, I think we'll see that increase again. So that buys down the cost of off-post care. And we have to be very careful that our off-post care is the same quality as our on-post care. So there's work being done to help our partners outside the gate really bring up their standards, again, back to the quality and the safety for our children. So there's a lot happening in that space as well, but we're really trying to get our staff in and retain our staff. There will never be enough childcare. I don't think ever. It happened, when I'm an old Army wife, so there wasn't enough then. There's not enough now, but there have been so many improvements since my children were were small. They're in their late 20s and early 30s now. So I don't have that issue, but I am so proud of how far our childcare has come in the Army. They've done a magnificent job. And I will tell you, the folks that I work with in the Pentagon and Installation Management Command, they are the most passionate group you will ever find. So they're working hard every day to try and get those wait lists lower and make sure all our children are accommodated.
Well, I'll tell you, we've had amazing care. We've been to Fort Drum, we've been overseas, and now here, and we've been to 3 different facilities here. We're utilizing off-post care for my son who's school age, but using the programs to help with the cost off post. I mean, we've had issues with our daughter, and they have just gone above and beyond. I'm telling you, I cannot say enough about the care that we are getting on Fort Liberty right now, and how happy we have been with everywhere.
And that's not an easy job.
It's, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Every time I walk in there and there are children screaming, I'm like, how do you do this all day?
It's just their passion. It's amazing.
It is. And I think it's important to talk about that, because we talk about retention, we talk about incentivizing people going into these positions, but it's not just anybody that is going into them. These are people that do truly care about the care that they are giving to these children. And so again, this is apparently I'm very passionate about this, and maybe it's just because, like I said, we have used it since my son was 3 months old, and now he is going into 2nd grade, and we've been very happy with what we've been able to get as far as care. So.
If I could add one thing that Dee kind of talked about too, is this portability of employment as well. We want to ensure that our employees in childcare who have a passion, because they're very passionate, can have the opportunity to transfer and be able to assume employment, because a lot of them are spouses as well.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that their ability to be able to transfer and move right into a child development center is ready for them as they go through the processes of PCS. And the second thing is ensuring that we create this sort of enterprise of childcare, where we have our childcare providers who have opportunities through certifications and educational opportunities that will enhance their ability to be able to assume other responsibilities of higher inside of childcare, coming from maybe attending a room of children to moving up to, at some point in time, maybe being a director of one of our CDCs, and we want to make it something that the employees and to include our spouses who are working very hard have the opportunity to increase inside of childcare, and that's important for us as well.
This is the last thing I'll say about this, because I won't belabor it anymore, but my daughter is in Strong Beginnings on Fort Liberty right now. My son was in the same Strong Beginnings, and my daughter ended up having some of the same teachers. So we went in there knowing the staff, and one of his teachers is now in an administrative position. One of my daughter's teachers took the opportunity they were PCSing, so she was transferring to another installation, which was amazing because she was amazing. So I feel like I've seen all of these things that you're talking about actually happening, which is awesome.
Right.
So, but yes, childcare is very important. But sir, quality of life is not just important for recruitment and retention. It also plays an important role in readiness and reducing our soldier stress and our families. When we talk about stress, it can lead to unhealthy and harmful behaviors. Can you talk a little bit about the role of quality of life prevention and how the Army is transferring prevention?
Yes, I can, and I'll let Dee chime in as well, because I know this is absolutely her portfolio.
Okay.
That she's kind of had, but I'll start first. There is a direct correlation between, I think, the readiness of our force and the prevention requirements. I think we do in the Army. The Chief of Staff and Secretary have, they've always kind of said this: we are really good at reacting when we have problems occur, when soldiers experience problems. But we are really investing time to ensure that we are getting on the front end of when our soldiers have significant challenges. And I think the important piece in prevention is when we kind of acquired, the prevention portfolio, which includes sexual assault, suicide prevention, and some of the other, aspects of prevention. It was a direct fit for our organization, because we have a lot of the things now. When you think about try to create healthy communities, create communities of health, allowing our families and our soldiers to thrive in the environments that they work. It was a direct fit for us. And so we think as we bring this portfolio inside of our G9, then we really can create these umbrellas of healthy and safe communities that give all the opportunities for families and soldiers to have the resources that really will prevent, things from happening. Prime example, we know that MWR is a big thing.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that, access to MWR programs allows our soldiers to be able to, to have an outlet, and to help, deal with and cope with certain things that they're experiencing. But we also can never underestimate the impacts of leadership. We also want to make sure that leaders are investing time in ensuring that, the soldiers and the families are cared for. And that's important. So we're excited about where we're going. We got a lot of work to do, as Dee said, but it has been amazing to see the level of transition with the passionate group of men and women that we have working in this organization that are committed to ensuring we do the best for our soldiers and families. Dee.
Oh, sir, thank you. I think we've talked a lot about cultural reform in the way that we look at prevention. And the way that we're approaching now is through the lens of social determinants of health. Social determinants of health are the built environment, access to health care, financial or economic security, right? Employment, and social connectedness. And it's all the things that we just talked about in the Quality of Life Task Force, right? So we are so focused, and a lot of our legislation is also focused in that intervention. We have to get upstream. The upstream prevention, the primary prevention, and it's everything that General Vereen just talked about. It's everything that's in our Quality of Life Task Force right now. It is providing healthy community and healthy outlets before we get to that point where we have to intervene in a harmful behavior. So that's the approach that we're taking right now.
One of my other things that I do is I work with our G1 on suicide prevention. And so this is very interesting to me, and I look forward to seeing what happens and where we go with this. So I wanted to give you both an opportunity to just touch on something that maybe we haven't touched on. Ma'am, I'll let you go first. Is there anything you just want to add?
Sure. I will add that, first of all, the website that I talked about before, look at the accomplishments out there. Where you think we're falling short on those accomplishments, their Army Family Action Plan is your avenue to move issues for soldiers and families into the Pentagon. So please use the AFAP process. Okay. Use your Army Community Service Center. Seek out your resiliency center. Seek out all of the activities that are available to you as soldiers and families on this amazing post that you have here. There's a lot to offer.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think we have all of these things, but maybe there's like the stigma about using some of them on posts. I don't know what that is, but there's so many resources, financial, military family life counselors, all of these things. And I hope people hear this, use them. They are there for you.
Personal financial counselors are amazing.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a resource problem, right, in your household. To somebody sitting there waiting to make you and set you up for success in your future. Yeah. Use them. They're there. There's nothing negative about that.
Right.
We use a financial advisor.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only going to help your future.
It's only going to help your future. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, sir, I'll go to you now.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that, we all know that we're in this era of technology and social media and the availability of information that's all out, in the social media space or the technology space. We know that we are going to do everything we can to have resources accessible for our soldiers and families, and that's ensuring that they know where to go. I am a firm believer, and I think a lot of folks will agree with me. You don't necessarily need to research things and to find out about things until you really need it. And so we know that that's how our generation deals with certain things. We know that information is available, but it's not necessarily needed until the time that they need it. And so, but like Dee said, we just want to make sure that that our families and soldiers know the resources that are available to them. I do want to make a plug for the Garrison Command app. We are that's MCOM owned. They're absolutely responsible for kind of keeping it running, but there is a wealth of information on the Garrison Command app, and it helps them when families are going through transitions from installation to installation. But it also helps them, to find certain resources that are available on the installations. And we're in the middle of retooling it, and so we look forward to the revamped version coming out here soon. But MCOM has been really working very hard to ensure that it is user-friendly and it's going to give every sort of resource to make our soldiers and families aware of the resources that are available for them. And last, I do want to say thank you for allowing us to come today. I have I'm an Army, brat. I was born here at Fort Liberty.
That's awesome.
Decades ago. I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but I have a passion for Fort Liberty, and so we're excited. We're excited for the opportunity to come and talk. But we also know that there's multiple amounts of other installations that need the same love and attention, and that's what we're going to do. I think for the Army, we want to ensure that we have quality installations across the Army, because it's important for the readiness of our force, and that's important to us.
Absolutely. Well, I thank both of you. I think I could talk to you a lot longer. I think there are topics that we have not touched on. I think we could talk for probably an hour, but I know you both are busy while you're here. You're doing a fireside chat later this morning. So I appreciate you taking the time to stop in and chat with me.
Thank you.